There is a saying that I've heard over the course of my career, and I don't know who put out these very wise words, but I'm still going to quote the quote, and we often cite it as anonymous, and it is a man who said, you know what, let's stop talking about me so that you can talk about me. And that is basically the attitude of a conversational narcissist. They take over the entire conversation. And it isn't just, I'm accidentally bumping into you with my words and we're talking over each other and, I'm loud, you're a little bit slower in responding, or you're a little bit lower in tone. We have to kind of get comfortable with our communication styles. That is not the case when it comes to a narcissist. A narcissist often feels they are in control. They are in the driver's seat. They are in the front of the line when it comes to communication. They may also be of the idea that nothing is going to be particularly interesting to moi if you start talking. So I'm going to talk, I'm going to dominate, I'm going to cut you off, and I'm going to minimize your impact and influence on this conversation because I don't want to be bored. Even a person who may say to you, oh, I'm sorry, didn't mean to talk over you. Go ahead. You may go ahead and guess what? They steal the stage from you again. And it's like, wait a minute, didn't you just tell me I could start talking? But it's hard, very hard for a narcissist to just move aside and let you talk. They are characterized, conversational narcissists are characterized by dominance, control, and self-centeredness. They don't have time for you, right? They interrupt you and they cut you off and they steer the conversation either to a topic that they are interested in or a topic that involves them. And that is the way the conversation is going to go. They use the tactic known as a shift response. You're having a conversation with this person and maybe this is your mom and she's telling you about everything that happened to her when she was younger and how your life is no different from hers, and hang in there because things are going to get better. I know they're tough now, right? Those kind of parent-child discussions. So let's say you guys are having that conversation. A shift response is going to be, yeah, because I know in my life, and then there's the whole conversation that is now focused on the decisions and the behaviors and the attitudes, needs and wants and desires of your mother. So shift responses are interesting because they basically are there to steal the conversation. Now you're also going to get this disposition from this person that says, I am literally blocking your ability to have any kind of impact on this conversation. The contributions to this conversation from you is not going to be of interest. So I'm going to cut you off. I'm going to block you. I'm going to talk all over you. I'm going to put words in your mouth. I'm going to, mimic what you're saying, but I put it a little bit differently into my own words. And sometimes you may have that really bold narcissist who actually puts words in your mouth and says that you said something that you did not say. They love to give long-winded statements, stories, and monologues. And you're probably sitting there like, oh my God, we just talked about this the other day, right? And it's because they are kind of the experts of their own story. And when they are the experts, or they feel like they're on the top of the world telling you about what has happened to them or what they think should be or something like that, it has to be long-winded. It can't be, here's a couple of words and a little bit of context and I'm done. Because when they give long statements, long stories, long monologues, where's your attention? It's all on them. Questions may lead back to them as well, right? They may ask you something. How would you feel if your boyfriend A, B, and C, and they may give you this amount of time to respond to them, right? Or in today's world, they may text you, right? And in their mind, you should be available. So if you don't respond to them in the next 10 minutes, you're ignoring them. You're not my friend anymore. You're not being a loyal family member. And the list just goes on. The narcissistic conversationalist is really difficult to deal with. They have very poor, little to no social skills. They are not emotionally intelligent. They tend to listen unempathically, right? I think that's a new word, but we're going to go with it. They tend to be unempathic listeners, and they engage in circular reasoning. You may be trying to arrive at a conclusion somewhere, make some sense out of something, and they're just going around and around and around, right? And I've had this kind of experience in therapy sessions in the past with a conversational narcissist, where they're sitting there and they're having this conversation, and I'll ask a question. I'll ask a question like, so did you and your brother go to the party or no? Or how did that go? Well, me and my brother, we kind of had a conversation before the party, and then we got sidetracked. And so we started talking to, my mom and dad. And so when we had that conversation, it kind of took up a lot of time. And, we just went on and we talked about our goals and our aspirations. And I may say, okay, that's great. I'm glad you spent some time with him. But did you guys go to the party? And she may say, well, I realize that this is life and it's going to be really hard for us to communicate and be on the same page. He likes what he likes. I like what I like. And that's just going to be our relationship. Okay, but did you guys go to the party together? Well, no, we didn't go to the party together. Guys, that would drive me insane. And I've been there before. And it's like, just get to the point. Why are we going around and around and around? And circular reasoning could also be, something that you have a strong belief in, like religion and politics, right? And circular reasoning says that I'm reasoning in a way that just takes me around and around in circles. And they are all frustrating, and conversational narcissists do this all the time. So if you know a conversational narcissist, your family member, your friend, your coworker, your boss, then you want to keep watching this video. So what are some common issues with these people? Well, let me just be honest with you. They are very frustrating. It's not easy to get to the bottom of what they want, they need, they desire. It's really hard for them to just be open, allow you to talk and express yourself and get on with the day. They need to be the center of the world. So there's a lot of hindered communication with them. It's like communication gets hung up or hindered, You don't know why you're at this fork in the road, but you are. And so, either they've stopped to talk about something you really don't want to talk about, or they're making it about them when the conversation was really about the two of you, or they're arguing a point that doesn't need to be argued because you really didn't want to talk about this in the first place. Whatever the case may be, communication may be hung up. These individuals, they have little to no insight in how they communicate. They are poor communicators. Again, they unempathically listen. They don't know how to communicate and relate to you, right? They don't know how to communicate with and relate to you, and they often have a hard time just being modest and humble in their communication. So you may detect lording over you. You may detect trying to make their knowledge and education seem bigger than yours. They may try to act like they're more socially and culturally educated than you. There may be a sense of urgency and how they communicate with you. They have one question, can I borrow some money off of you? And they're going to blow up your texts, right? They're going to send you all these texts back to back to back like it's an emergency. They ring your phone 900 times and hang up and don't leave a voicemail. They dominate the conversation when you are in text or you finally are talking to them, right? And so in a sense, they're using the psychology of urgency to get you popping. If I call you many times and hang up and don't leave a voicemail, you're going to be worried and concerned, which means that you're going to pick up the phone or you're going to text me back, and I'll know that you're ready for me. I know at that moment that you are there and you're going to hear me. That's a really hard thing, right? Because you could be doing something important, but they're calling and hanging up, trying to force you to pick up the phone. That can be really unnerving, and they know it is. You may notice that they use masks and facades every time they have a conversation with you. You can't figure out who's talking to you. You can exhibit signs of boredom in your conversations. Yawning, sitting like this, body language, blowing and huffing when you're talking. All of it is very narcissistic, untimely, and inappropriate. They want and they never give. I want you to listen to me, but I'm never going to give you the opportunity to talk to me because I'm going to cut you off. I'm going to derail the conversation. I'm going to minimize things. I'm going to make sure that I get my point out, though. Tune your ears up. because I'm going to take the whole conversation over. And that is basically the issue here. Now, when a therapist is trying to figure out what kind of narcissist they're dealing with, we often have to do what we call a differential diagnosis. And sometimes we're looking at, what's the difference between this disorder and that disorder? What fits the best for this person's, symptoms and behaviors that they are exhibiting? It's really hard for us to figure it out when it's a narcissist. But what we do look at is an autism spectrum disorder. Is this a person that just doesn't get social cues, right? And if it's an autism spectrum disorder with a little bit of narcissistic tendencies, then we're really going to have a hard time. The other piece of the puzzle is this. Is it ADHD? A lot of adults with ADD struggle with listening and paying attention for long periods of time. And they also have a really hard time focusing and giving people the floor when it's their turn to talk. Social anxiety is another thing. Social anxiety is not going to have a flare of arrogance, but sometimes, individuals who have a hard time listening and responding and being reciprocal in a conversation, they really do struggle sometimes with letting other people talk because they're anxious and they don't know what's going to come up next. They don't know what's to be said. So sometimes it's better to be in control than to sit and wait and be caught off guard. And other times it's just they're trying to be sociable when they know deep down they're not. So that's a possibility. And antisocial personality disorder is something that we also look at. Are we dealing with a psychopath or a sociopath who just strictly doesn't care about conversation? Your input doesn't matter to them. And if that's the case, then we got a real big problem, right? Because antisocial personality disorder is highly genetic at times in certain cases, and it is also an environmental issue, right? What are the factors that led up to this kind of disorder and this despicable behavior? How was this person raised? Who do they communicate with the most? Who are the people that they have dominated and feel that this is a behavior that benefits them? There's a variety of ways that we could look at this, and it makes it really hard. Now, when we're talking about a narcissistic personality, here's the clinical definition here on the screen so that you can understand that we're not talking about the daily, you're a narcissist, right? We don't want to do that. We're talking about the clinical version of narcissism, and here it is. And these are all the things that defines what a true narcissistic personality is. And if you're dealing with a conversational narcissist, you're going to want to know how to deal with them. So let's jump into that, okay, guys? The first way that you want to deal with them, because they are very ingenuine, and they tend to be very plastered-like and false, fake, phony. We can throw all those words in there. The first thing you're likely to see is an individual who says, "This is my floor, and you're not on it." So when that happens, what should you do? I always suggest, don't fight for the floor. You want the floor? Here's all the floor. But I'm not going to give you advice. I'm not going to give you insights. I'm not going to give you much feedback because I already know that this communication is not reciprocal. So why am I going to tire myself out? Don't fight for the floor. Let them have the floor, right? Also model active listening. They may be a narcissist and they may be clinically narcissistic, but you can still model behaviors for that particular relationship. And there is some research to, back up the reality that some narcissists may learn from their behaviors at times. And it just depends on where they are on that narcissistic spectrum, And so model that active listening, pause, give eye contact, give them social cues, or make sure your body is communicating that you're listening. Give them eye contact. Accept that the relationship and the communication is not going to be reciprocal. So if this is a person that you wish could give you advice and insights and feedback, don't look for that to happen, because a lot of times conversational narcissists are going to give you advice, but it's going to be unsolicited, and it may be very bad advice, so just shy away from that. If you're going to be in a relationship with a narcissistic personality, keep talking sometimes and don't give in. Sometimes a fight for the floor can be helpful in a sense, because you may need to increase the volume of your voice or increase the pressure or the force of your voice in a conversation so that you can make it clear that I'm trying to say something and you will respect that. And sometimes that's a wise way to deal with that. Pull back sometimes, right? If they're talking over you and cutting you off and screaming over you and being argumentative, back out of the whole encounter. Because sometimes wisdom and emotional intelligence says that we are not to be in that neck and neck battle with certain people who are controlling in conversation. Just back out of it. Sometimes they will see themselves. Sometimes you can be a model for them. And other times you might as well just think and think about and really care for yourself by saying, I'm not going to engage in this tiring battle with you. You can also kindly reject unsolicited advice from them. That's what I do as a therapist. Sometimes if somebody's narcissistic and I'm in a communication with them, they'll say something like, here's what I would do. That's what you need to do. And the first thing I'll say is, oh, I appreciate that. That's something for me to consider. And I never think about it again. So you really have to know the communicator and know what kind of person they are. And then you can make that judgment. The other thing is, don't fall for the superiority complex, because a lot of conversational narcissists believe that they're up here. I've had clients in the past who talk to me like I'm beneath them. I've also had clients in the past who talk to me like they're my parent. Right? And we're talking about in a way that says, hey, look here, I'm over you. And so the moment, especially when I was starting out in psychology, I really wasn't that experienced. So this was over 16 years ago. But in an encounter where, I wasn't really sure of myself, I would have older clients talk to me like they're my mother, like they're my father, like they're my big sister or aunt, and I'm not to cut them off or say anything to them. And what I learned over time is when I would fall for that superiority complex and that move of superiority in conversation, I would lose every time. So you have to know the player, and once you do, look for that false superiority complex and don't give in, right? Set a new expectation for yourself. You need to set that new expectation, which is, this is not going to be a reciprocal situation. This person has a superiority complex. This person is rude and disregarding and disrespectful. And this is not a healthy individual. Once you set that new expectation, things get a lot better sometimes. Come join me Saturday and Friday as I talk more about these complex dynamics. I'll see you then. Goodbye.